I'm sure there were a lot of startup lessons right there in that speech. So moving forward, up next is Bruce Schwack. He's the co-founder and director of communications of online pharmacy Netmeds. He has been building businesses and creating jobs in India since 2000, when he was active in pioneering the nascent entrepreneurial BPO and contact center space. He has built more than 50 centers throughout the country for many of India's most successful brands. He has partnered with Pradeep Dada, Netmeds founder and CEO, since 2003. Together, they built a global marketing and logistics company which provided marketing and customer support for some of the biggest European and US brands. In 2015, they launched Netmeds. Just last week, Netmeds announced closing of a second round of funding worth more than 90 crores and has amassed a customer base of more than 10 lakh customers, representing 13,000 pin codes in more than 850 cities, towns, and rural villages. As Director of Communications, he creates the company's marketing campaigns and all customer-facing communications. He's an avid golfer, fitness enthusiast, and lives in Mylapore with his dog Karma. Over to you, Bruce.
So, I just was thinking that I can now buy stock in Matrimony.com, and as a single man, I can be a customer. So, anyway, the great question is, how does a U.S. guy wind up residing in Mylapore and helping to create one of the most disruptive companies in India today? That's a story that I hope that you'll find interesting, and I'll tell you a little bit about it. Now, first of all, you've got to go back in time. We were having a little pre-discussion about the state of the art of artificial intelligence today, and how invasive marketing has become, and how the brand marketers seem to know everything about us. Well, go back in time and think about a day when an engineer, like some of you today, went running into his boss's office and said, "Boss, I have figured out how to get the computer to dial a phone number." This was like shocking, revolutionary. And not only that, boss, I can make it dial a whole bunch of phone numbers at once. I can put a whole list in there. This was the advent of a new kind of marketing called predictive dialing. And this amazing, at the time, machinery would allow marketers to load huge databases into a computer, the predictive dialer, and these lists of affinity customers who all had something in common would now be dialed in rapid fashion. And the reason it's called predictive dialing is because, and you've gotten calls like this, the call is actually made before the agent is on the call. So the predictive dialer calls out to the world and predicts when an agent will be available to take the call. Well, anyway, this kind of marketing software was something that I was not only fascinated with, but I started running big telemarketing operations in the US. And at the time, the licenses for this software were very expensive, costing upwards of $2,000 per license. And at some point in time in my operation, my software guys, my tech guys, came to me and said, "Hey boss, we think we can build our own software just like this." I said, "Good, build it." Well, once we had built our own software, I had been marketing for a number of big brands like AT&T and MasterCard and Sprint and Verizon and Dish Network. And we were running a lot of successful campaigns through a lot of seats. And this was when what I call intellectual arbitrage began to take place. Envision this. At the time, we were running telemarketing campaigns out of the United States, and we were paying for a hourly wage, a loaded labor cost of about $32 US. Suddenly, I realized that these same kind of brilliant people could get on the phones in great English and do the job in Canada for $12. So all of a sudden, we're saving $20 an hour by taking the same business. And this was the beginning of the Thomas Friedman flat world concept. So I started building these call centers throughout Canada with willing entrepreneurs and the funding of Bell Canada, who realized that every time we built a 100-seat call center, they would run about 1 million minutes of long-distance telecom through the center. And I built 12 of these centers all across Canada. And it was when I was in Vancouver. I had gone east to west, and in Vancouver, Canada, I was building my 12th center. And this is a good tip for you entrepreneurs and wannabe entrepreneurs. Always read. I happened to be going into the bathroom that day and grabbed a magazine, a random magazine. And as I read through it, I read this fascinating article about this guy, Jack Welch, who was the CEO of General Electric, and he had put all of the General Electric customer service into India. Well, at the time, I really didn't even know where India was. But I started realizing, wow, let's see, I've got these guys doing this job now. I've gone from 32 US dollars to 12 US dollars, and now I'm reading, in India, I can get the exact same work done for 5 US dollars. So from Vancouver, I went racing back to Florida, and I told my partner, I just read this article. I think India is going to be the future of this telemarketing customer service business. I'm going to India. And my partner, and if you guys have ever partnered with anybody, you know, you got to hate the guy who's the logical partner. He said, yeah, but you don't know anybody in India. I said, yeah, that's true, but I'm going to find somebody. Well, lo and behold, I went the following week to a software demonstration in Orlando. And the reason I actually went was because I wanted to see what my competitors, who were the big boys like Lucent Technologies and Davox, Concerto, the big predictive dialing software makers, I wanted to see what they were introducing as new features. And as I walked around this hall, I came to a presenter who was presenting software for Lucent Technologies. And I saw him delivering his pitch to what I thought was an Indian. So I slid over next to the guy, and I listened, and he listened, and at some point in time, the software salesman made the mistake of turning to me and saying, so sir, are you interested in software like this? And I said, no, actually, I sell software like this, but people who buy my software, I also give them campaigns to do. And the Indian guy, whose name was Mukesh Patel, turned to me and said, is that right, brother? I said, yeah. You buy my software, I'll give you a campaign to dial the day you open. So he said, let's go talk. And the presenter for Lucent said, but sir, I'm not finished. I said, oh yeah, you are finished. So me and Mukesh walked outside, and on a napkin at the restaurant, we carved out a deal for my first 100 seats in India. Within 3 weeks, I flew to Mumbai. I set up an office in the Leela Kempinski where I just would work the lobby. And throngs of entrepreneurs would come to see me. I remember vividly my first pitch, and this was really interesting. I had always been a pretty effective presenter and salesperson. And if you've ever sold anything for a living, as you sell, the idea of effective selling is to continually do trial closes and keep asking the prospective buyer, so how does that sound? My first pitch was to the CEO of Gujarat Heavy Chemical Limited, they were launching a customer service and a telemarketing initiative. So as I pitched this guy, and again, remember, this is my first trip to India ever, and I pitched this guy everything I would say, he would do this. Thinking, what do I have to do to impress this guy? But I kept pitching and pitching, and finally, at the end of my pitch, I said, well, that's about it. He said, it sounds great, let's do it. And I realized, wow, this must mean yes. So that was one of my real first kind of experiments in understanding the culture. But of course, it came to pass that I wound up building, as the introducer said, I built over 50 call centers in India. Also one in Mauritius, a couple in Jamaica, a couple in Costa Rica, and throughout the world. And that was the way it would work: is you buy my software, you get campaigns. So we wound up building lots of call centers, and in 2000, toward the end of the build out, I wound up getting retained to build a call center for a local guy, a Chennai guy named Pradeep Dada. This was a real kind of turning point moment for me, because first of all, I know you've all known somebody like this. Pradeep is one of those guys who is usually the smartest guy in the room, and it was just it was a beautiful marriage, and we wound up building a global company that was doing marketing and fulfillment for lots of big brands. And finally, after doing this for a long time and putting together a core team, we had always thought about doing an Indian-facing consumer deal. Now, it went hand in hand with what we eventually lost, that Pradeep's family, the Dada family, had been in the pharmaceutical business for over 100 years. Dada and Company was actually founded by Pradeep Dada's grandfather, Lalchand Dada. And during the company's 100th anniversary, their golden anniversary celebration, we started contemplating doing our first play, our online pharmacy play. By 2015, we launched, actually it was June 8th, 2015, we launched Netmeds. And Netmeds was and remains the first online pharmacy, and is today the largest online pharmacy. So that's how we came to be here today. And again, as the introducer, as I was introduced, we were fortunate to announce last week that we just closed a fundraise of 90 crore. And as my colleague from Matrimony knows, a lot of that money is for marketing. When we launched Netmeds, we made it a point to get on television. Our first television campaign was pretty resonant. We used Parikshit Sani and Pia Bajpai to convey the message that distance caring is one of the best things you can do for loved ones. Make sure your parents have medicine wherever they are in India. Spent a lot of money on TV, launched a second round of TV commercials with the comedians Krishna and Sudesh that did a more playful kind of discount campaign. And now we've just raised more money. We're about to get back on TV. So that's basically the story of how this U.S. guy came to live in Mylapore, right down the street from here, and launch what we believe is destined to be one of the biggest companies in India. That's my story.
So, Bruce, what are your thoughts on the same? You have been in this ecosystem for quite some time, and you have seen this evolve.
Yeah, I'll tell you a little story that kind of puts an exclamation point on my feelings about it. We were fortunate to win the NDTV Startup of the Year Award in 2016. What's really cool about that award, it's one of the awards that you can't buy, as all these guys know. Lots of awards. You can be the most prestigious global brand of the universe. You can be just about anything with a price attached if you're willing to pay it. But the NDTV award was one that you can't buy. You don't even know you're going to get it until you're told that you've been nominated and shortlisted. I went to the award ceremony, even though my partner Pradeep said we're not going to win. I said, how do you know we're not going to win? He said, because the PR company that's putting on the event represents another pharmacy company. I said, I'll go anyway. Well, we won. And in making the acceptance speech, one of the things I said was, and this is true, I am surrounded by people that are so smart, I don't know what they're talking about. But fortunately, they work for me, and it really is a testament to Chennai and the brain power that emanates out of here. It is really an incredible place to work, to build a business. And I think all of India is starting to recognize that, and big businesses are starting to migrate south like never before.
That's good to hear. Positive. So, Arvind, taking off from there, I mean, Chennai, as everybody is saying, is the SaaS capital of the world.
In healthcare, what we are seeing is an evolution because of the internet and people's access now not only to buy medicine, but prior to being able to buy or access medicine affordably, we're now enabling people to actually have, for what is for many of them, their first conversation with a doctor. You know, prior to the launch of Netmeds, there really was no actual demand for a prescription before you could buy prescription medication. Many people throughout India have been self-prescribing for years. In fact, we have found that many people have decided that because their father was diabetic, they probably should be taking diabetes medication. When people try to buy medicine online without a prescription, we connect them with a doctor, and I know from personal conversations, for many of them, it's been the first actual meeting with a doctor where they've actually discussed their health, their conditions. So we are really changing the face of healthcare in India. And another thing we were talking about prior to the general meeting, again, by demanding prescriptions online, what we've done is collected over 1 million prescriptions written by doctors, and this is the first database of actual prescriptions ever generated. So for the first time, we can actually trace from a pill's point of manufacture all the way to the tummy that it winds up in, because prescriptions were never maintained. We now, when we get a prescription, we digitize it before anything else, and this digital database of prescriptions generated is really going to help in changing the face of healthcare in India. And we also have just launched a bot that allows our customers to talk to the bot, and after they've triggered a few responses, the bot will say, I think you need to talk to a doctor, at which point we'll connect them to one of a number of doctors' networks online. And this is where we see things going in terms of healthcare and improvements for the entire population.
I'm not an IT guy, so I'm not an engineer. Okay, I'm from the finance. But I have an idea. Now, this idea needs some IT interface or an architecture, whatever it is. I have bet at least 10 IT guys who are running companies. Some say they are a fintech company. Some say they are doing everything about financial services. I have a discussion with them. They are not interested after that. Now, I don't need funds. I'm not looking for funding. My funding is already, maybe it won't need any funds. It's only a question of, how to convert the idea into a scalability level. I have been surviving for a year and a half. I've left my job also. I was a CFO of a group of companies. I've left my job. I'm on my own for the past year or so. And so I thought, okay, I have now logged into Power of Ideas this time. So maybe I think I should see my way through end of the session or end of this program. Or in the meantime, if somebody can volunteer to come up and tell me how to convert an idea or an interface, an architecture, IT architecture is what basically I'm looking for. I'm okay for it.
No,
Thank
good.
you.
Sir, please go ahead.
I think there's a step that you're leaving out. Before the idea has to be converted to an IT platform, I think there's a exercise in determining there's a difference between an idea and a great idea. There's not a market for every idea. Now, the first step, and again, this doesn't require coding, it doesn't require anybody building anything, it's having a look at the marketplace and determining if my idea actually can get any traction. One of the the simplest procedures that I often use is go to Google and see if anybody's searching for anything like my idea. Is my idea unique? Is it going to help people? Is it going to provide a service or a product that's not currently available? And are people willing to pay for it? Now, if your idea fits all those criteria, I don't think it's a big step to writing it out in English and having that English translated by a good developer or coder into an interface.
No, not even good. My only suggestion to budding entrepreneurs in the audience is that one of the things that any investor is a little loath to, and I think he brought up the point, so I'm more responding to it. Otherwise, I would not have made this comment. Is to build is to get attracted or is to get interested in businesses that has got nothing to do with the government. So I think the general majority of the investor community is extremely averse to businesses which have any government interface except the bare minimum that is required. Yeah, of course, you can't escape Companies Act if you're forming a company. You can't escape Income Tax Act if you're forming, if you're a profit-generating company which has to pay tax. And you can't escape GST if you're providing services or products here. So sans that, and if you're receiving money from outside the country, you're obviously governed by FEMA. But beyond this, people don't like businesses which have government as a customer or has got anything to do with the government. I mean, and again, I'm caveating it, I'm making this point more because it was brought up as to how do we, navigate and build businesses in spite of the government.
And exactly to that point, a story I was telling too earlier was, if you remember when we launched Netmeds, we were opposed violently by the Druggist and Chem Association. Of course, the regulators in the prescription medicine business, we have to deal with regulators. And of course, the regulators didn't know which way to go, but finally they came to our side. In fact, I was sitting in a meeting in the Minister of Health's office in Delhi when he turned to me and said, as of today, you're no longer criminals. So about a month ago, the government regulators released the new regulations governing online pharmacy, recognizing that online pharmacy was legitimate, necessary, and would go forward. And within that next 30 days, we raised 90 crore. So you're so right. Until the government came out and said, these guys are legitimate, everybody was averse to investing in our business.
So basically, as you pointed out, right, there should be a problem to resolve. But there is a problem in the sense that all your service providers are not getting the adequate amount of compensation they deserve for the service they provide. Rather, the intermediaries are able to hoard information and a lot of the capital which is involved in the transaction, like the amount of commission that Uber charges or what Airbnb does. So basically, these people, these drivers or these room renters or whoever it is, the service providers, if they want to become an entrepreneur, these intermediaries are an obstruction. They don't allow them to do it. But this would help remove the intermediaries completely. And as regards monetizing the service, there are ways to do that even with this system in place. So my question is, do you think that such a free organization of society would be possible in India, given the amount of regulations that we have and given the processes that we follow in a lot of institutions, both government and non-governmental agencies? Do you think there is acceptance among people to reorganize them into a cooperative?
I will generally answer you by saying that I think that your question goes to the root of capitalism versus socialism. What you call intermediaries are the businesses. Now, these intermediaries also provide a responsibility factor. If let's say Uber disappeared and it was left to millions of drivers to determine who was going to do the pickup, who was going to be responsible, who was going to take action if somebody abused a passenger, the whole thing would break down. And I believe that it's impossible for a cooperative to be beneficial to the public, to give good service, and to replace the existing intermediaries, which are actually the businesses that we all own.
Since to Mr. Bruce, I have two questions, sir. How important, see, when we talk about a consultation application between the patient and the doctor, so we've launched and we've launched it on a pilot basis and we've got close to 1,000 consultation. We're just working on it. Now my question is this. Number one is, how much is the patent, IP patent is important for these kind of application? And second one, on the business perspective, like you are in the an online pharmacy activity. So a startup like which connects patient and the doctor, at which stage, for example, how many prescriptions we should approach some company like online pharmacy company, maybe any company, but online pharmacy company, because it acts as a synergy. We can join hands and travel together. So 2 questions to you, Mr. Bruce.
I'm not sure what the 2 questions are, but I can tell you this generally.
Can I repeat the questions?
Yeah.
Yeah. Number 1 question. In an application where it connects doctor and patient.
Yeah, you said, is there an IP? Is it a patentable process?
Yeah. How important the IP part?
It's not only is it not important, it's impossible. There are so many of them already.
Okay.
I don't see how you could possibly protect that idea.
Fine.
You know, telemedicine really took hold in the U.S. about 15 years ago.
Yes.
Now it's red hot here. I mean, I am using 3 very active, very established doctor networks who, you know, actually it's such a vibrant space that there's actually an Uber model in that when a patient comes online that needs a new prescription, that fires out to a number of doctor networks. The first one that grab it, and we laugh because I often say, I wonder if that doctor's in his golf cart right now, because all you need is a smartphone and you grab the patient inquiry and start Skyping or WhatsApping, and the consultation occurs immediately. So it's a great space, but you're a little late.
It's a little competitive, yes, but yeah. Now the second question is what is the right stage, or what stage of the business, when you have so many prescriptions, you can reach out to online pharmacy to join hand with them?
You want to join hands with you? We can start tomorrow. we join hands. We work with doctors' networks.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I am Bruce at Netmeds. Very easy to reach.